This is a MedBricks Webcast. I'm the host, Raman Anamaraju. I'm not Albert Einstein, but I'm pretty good. We have a format for the show that we do introduce some guests, 10, 15 minutes, that talk about the topics of interest of healthcare. Then I present my topic. Each day differs. Today's topic is that I'm going to present a fractal geometry for mental health relaxation. Today, let me introduce you. Today's a distinguished guest, George T. Mathew. He is a Chief Medical Officer for Daedalus, a global multilingual electronic health records platform. He is the doctor, he is the one doctor ID guys should be afraid of. He has a MD from Boston University and have a multiple board certifications, board certified in internal medicine and board certified in preventive medicine and assistant professor of medicine. He has an MBA from Duke and have certifications from the American Board of Artificial Intelligence in Medicine and is a member of the privacy workforce of the National Institute of Standard and Technology. I'm honored to have him. The only person who has the qualifications above him is a God. Welcome, Dr. So let me ask you, what is your background? You have a just incredible background, and I have very few doctors. Only God has the next qualifications above you. Then you have that
Oh, no,
many
no, please don't
qualifications.
say that. No,
So tell me, what is your journey up to this point?
I am a internal medicine physician here, a GP here in the States. I've also done about 20 years of corporate work at companies like GE or Goldman Sachs or Pfizer. I've helped with at least one IPO, and I've helped with a lot of digital health startups over the last 10 years, trying to find out ways to help people.
The privacy and what is the role of the privacy for the towards the patients and the doctors and everybody else?
So privacy, let me start with a definition and explain why it's important to me as a clinical doctor. When you think about privacy, most people think of being a little antisocial, but from a legal sense, it means that you have control over any type of surveillance of you or any type of data collected over you, or just have the ability to be left alone. It sounds a little bit, it sounds simple, but in our day and age with the surveillance capitalism the way it is, it's very difficult to not be monitored by all the devices and cameras and everything else around you. And in my experience being a clinician for the last 20 years, without that ability to be private and choose what information you want to share, it's very difficult to establish trust. When I talk to my patients, I have to respect what they decide they want to share with me. That's their right, their agency, and their privacy. And I think by respecting that and their choices, they trust me, and I can work with them to help them get better from a health perspective. But if they were to turn around and find that I've taken all their data and sold it to a third party for money, I don't think they would trust me anymore. And yet that's what the majority of digital health companies and a lot of large healthcare companies in the US and externally do.
That is challenging. So these are I thought HIPAA, some of the rules, HIPAA laws protect the privacy of those patients. Isn't it the HIPAA is protecting that some extent, that process?
So, Ramana, you and I had talked a little before this. We've both been in the country for a while. HIPAA came about 25 years ago. And, at the time, I don't think anyone imagined what technology was going to look like 25 years later. Their idea was if you're a hospital or an insurance company or a health entity, you shouldn't be selling people's data. But they didn't anticipate what we're seeing in 2022, right? Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook, all of these companies are not traditional healthcare companies. And what they're finding is they've almost found a backdoor into finding very valuable health data about people. And then they realize that they're not restricted by what HIPAA would have protected against. In fact, it's gotten so bad now that hospitals and insurance companies have found workarounds so that they too can sell your data. In fact, despite HIPAA's intentions, it seems that the biggest use case in the United States, at least, is to keep patients from getting their own data from the healthcare systems. Meanwhile, healthcare systems are engaging in what we call real world data and real world evidence. In a nutshell, they're taking all of their electronic health record data and selling access to life sciences companies for money that they themselves keep.
Who wants the data actually?
At this point, you'd be surprised. You know, the thought is always it's somebody that wants to do identity theft, right? Somebody that wants access to your medical data, your insurance card information, your health records. But what we're finding is that there are a lot of different ways to use it. Imagine if your credit score is dependent on how frequently you buy your prescriptions. In fact, two of the three credit companies, I think it was Experian and I forgot which of the other ones, they were actually using your credit score as a proxy for how well you would adhere or comply to taking your medications. And they're selling that as a service. And then they were even selling a way to re-identify you after your data has been de-identified.
That is unbelievable. I didn't
And
know that. The first time I'm hearing it, that is they're saying that whether somebody is going to comply with the medication compliancy there or not through the data that they're monitoring that data actually.
well, they were selling it, I believe it was 10, 15 years ago. They may not be selling that
Yeah.
exact product. But the thing is, if you're using your credit card to buy medications, now they know what medications you're on. If you're
Ah,
on certain medications, they know what condition you have.
very
If they know
interesting.
what condition you have, right? And it's only recently, like in the United States, the number one cause for going bankrupt is medical bills and medical expenses. It's only in the last month or two that they decided to take that out of the equation for calculating your credit score.
Unbelievable. I this is the first time I heard. I've been in the industry for a while, and I never heard the credit card companies are also have their data. But there is a George. There is a benefit also. For example, if all of them share the data for the medical purposes, for the clinical research, like you're a professor.
Yeah,
So if you want to do some research or something,
sure.
so you need some data. But everybody is holding their data to sell someplace else. They're
Right.
not they're not giving to the research institutions that which deservingly need it to solve the problems. How do you address that?
I think that's been a problem for a while where there's always been this argument that, we can't just let people have their data because then we can't do research. But what we're finding is even there's been pushback from the healthcare systems, the different companies, where they don't want to share their data because they know it's valuable, even if they don't know what to do with it. And even between research teams, right? If you think about it, there are researchers that are competing for grants. They don't want the other researchers to see what they're doing. They want to be the one that publishes because then they get more grants and they do better. So it's a very set in place behavior. And what we have to think about, especially now that things are so expensive for healthcare in the United States and elsewhere, is how do we make these things accessible for people? One of the theses that are coming out that I like, it's being pushed a little bit in Europe, but it's starting to come to the fore here is what if patients own their data? What if they owned access to their data? And what if the financial receipts for using that data came back to them so they could pay for their own care? Because if you think about it, the people with the most conditions usually have the most money they have to pay. If I have diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, and some rare conditions, I have 5 different things and 5 different medications, and that could bankrupt me, especially if I'm retired or I don't have a job. Now imagine if we flip it around and say, you person with these 5 conditions are extremely valuable. We'd like to study you and we'll compensate you for studying you longitudinally over time. Because what we find out from you could help us treat the next person or develop the next drug. And in return, we'll figure out a way to compensate so you can afford your drugs and you can live a better life.
George, the analytics companies overpromised quite a bit, and
Yes.
I don't know why they didn't deliver because they don't have the lack of the data. Tell me, you're in both sides of the coin. what is the why they could not able to deliver the results that what they promised?
Some of it was they overpromised to begin with. They assumed very arrogantly that they had something that nobody else had. I don't know how many companies I've talked to that end their entire pitch with, "As long as you give us your data, we can do this." But I think the other thing structurally that's a problem is that the data is very dirty, right? It's very low quality data. And it's either incompletely filled in or things are missing, or it's not structured in a way that you can compare side by side. And that's why they say for most data scientists, 80% of their time is spent cleaning the data to make it something. Because if you think about it, let's say you get 1,000 patients' data, but it's all dirty. And by the time you clean it up, it's almost like a funnel. You have 5 patients. It's very difficult to extrapolate from 5 patients, even if it's clean.
Oh my. So, so very good. That you made a good point, but the dirty data, that's where the don't you think is artificial intelligence and machine learning can help you a little bit on that process?
There are some attempts with synthetic data to try to fill in the gaps or make new people, if you will. They're trying to use digital twin data to simulate populations. So there are some attempts to try to fix that. But the issue still comes, it's not 100%. The good or bad thing about all of this artificial intelligence, whether it's applied in care delivery or discovery, um, in the law, at least in the States, they treat artificial intelligence like it's a tool, right? So think of it as a hammer or a screwdriver. The tool, if it breaks, is not liable. It's the person using the tool that's liable. And we start getting into this, at least I call it moral hazard, where, if I'm an AI company, I'm fine. I'm in La La Land. I can keep on developing whatever I want. I make an algorithm that discovers sepsis. Oh, I flipped my values by accident and I told all the doctors to treat sepsis the wrong way. All the ones that have sepsis, I'm telling them they don't. And all the ones that don't have sepsis, I tell them they do. The ones that they think they have it get antibiotics. The ones that don't get any and they die.
That
After all
is
is said and done, it's the doctor that's so
the
responsible.
doctor is responsible. This is that's a legal structure has to change in that direction. Because these companies cannot go unscathed that to throw something and then see that it works or not. So it put the responsibility to the doctor. That's why medical field is getting frustrated. One of the reason is everything, all the responsibilities, they throw it on them without any giving the tools for them to that is you made that's a very correct point. That is one of the point well taken. In fact, that's one of the policymakers should get involved in that kind of a when they throw the data structures without a cleaning, that is a responsibility of them. Their criminally live civil liabilities has to be there for them. Without that, you are not going to improve the healthcare system just banging on the same thing on the doctors itself. I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah.
So, let me ask you about the data part. You're getting can we get for research purposes, you're a professor, you're teaching for corona, you are in the middle of the coronavirus, you are in the Valhalla or medical Westchester Medical. You saw the firsthand all this, the virus spreading. What do you think of getting international data is using internet? I saw you were involved with a company called Daedalus.
Yes.
Is a global multilingual company. Is it possible that companies like that help to share the data anonymously and then improve the care for overall for everybody in the world?
Yes. Let me start with I should say a conditional yes if. That's the more honest answer. Daedalus is a global health IT company, one of the largest in the world. We're in most countries. We're fairly small in the U.S., but we're very established in Europe, in Asia, including India. I think one of our largest projects was with Apollo Hospitals. We're in the Middle East. We're in Africa. So we're in South America. So we're all over. And one of our offerings is an interoperability suite to allow data to be moved from one point to another. And we translate it, at least in the US, using the Smart on Fire standard, as well as for clinical research, the OMOP standard. So we allow for a lot of different use cases. In Europe, we just joined the Open EHR group, which is its own like open source electronic health record. So we're allowing for that as well. So technically we can do that. However, and this is where it gets difficult with any type of process change, whether it's technology driven or not. It's not the technology that's the problem 99% of the time. It's the people and the processes and their ability or inability or even desire to change. I used to do Lean Six Sigma at GE, and I was always struck by the fact that no matter how much you thought you were improving something, for somebody who's used to doing the same process day in and day out, unless they help to build a new process, they will fight anything tooth and nail because it interferes with what they have to do every day. And that goes all the way up to the top of the organization. When we look at what some of the digital health innovations can do, a lot of it would actually improve, I believe, the outcomes for a lot of patients, but it also reduces the cost, or rather the price of that offering to the general public. From a hospital perspective, if I have a digital health telemedicine thing for cardiology, that might be well accepted, but per unit might be cheaper. But I have a cardiology practice that I bought with a set of cardiologists that all general cardiologists that do EP or cath or whatnot. If I take away their business and they make less money, then I have very unhappy cardiologists that may not want to stay with my practice.
They're correct.
So you're almost like robbing Peter to pay Paul. And even though it could lead to better care, if you don't keep this part happy, they'll all leave. So it's that type of tension that gets in the way of even the basic solutions that we're talking about now, like interoperability.
That's brilliant, what you said. Second question is, just you touched upon interoperability. I was talking with Dr. Howard Green, he's one of the proponents of all these things. He says, I interviewed him. He said that to me, that interoperability is more than a technical, it is a legal, political, it's all kinds of things involved in the corruption, everything is involved in the interoperability. What is your take on that?
I'm what do they say? A cynic is a disappointed optimist. I'm kind of or a disappointed idealist. That's what it is. I think when they did the original high-tech rules to bring electronic health records in, there was an assumption that, look, people will do the right thing. They'll share the data and patients will do better. And what we found is that the electronic health record companies like Epic and Cerner made a ton of money basically locking down the data and then making sure that, if you wanted to get access to the data, you had to join them. You couldn't just do it just any way you wanted to. And I think that's the thing. What we're finding to exist in the US market, there has to be a business case to support it. It's not something I like, quite honestly. Like when you look at privacy as an example, everywhere else in the world, the EU, India, China, they look at privacy as a human right. I think just recently, what was it, the data protection law in India was being pushed back after lobbying from Silicon Valley after being proposed back in 2019. But India's data protection law was seen to be, the personal data protection bill was seen to be one of the most advanced bills out there, even better than GDPR in Europe. And GDPR has been one of the biggest so far. But we don't have that here in the States. What we have in the States is, because it's a business case, I term it privacy at a premium. When you look at Apple, which is now the biggest proponent of privacy in the US, by putting their privacy label on apps, Facebook has lost, I would say, tens of billions of dollars of value just because they can no longer just take data the way they want to. Google has started to make it adaptations as well. So there's a value in it. But what is happening now is Apple's not only charging a premium to use their products to preserve your data, but now they're creating their own ad network system that they will sell your data into to then make more money. So there has to be a business case for it, or else it won't work here.
This last question I'm going to ask you about the international cases, particularly India, is one of the questions I have. They're all is a developing country still. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the money for that kind of digital health. How do they adopt the digital health? At the grassroots level, like villages and the towns. And I was from my father is a village doctor. So how do they adopt this kind of a digital health technology in the small areas, small places that they bottom up? What kind of advice you have for that kind of situation?
I mean, I think we have to acknowledge the fact that digital health isn't a solution for everything, right? The problem that we've had here in the States is that they make digital health apps for everything, whether it's good or not. Ramana, the case you were discussing before we got on the phone was a very good example of more technology isn't usually better. But I think what we have to look at from the point of view of what do physicians and nurses in, whether it's a village in India or a major hospital, need first? What are they trying to accomplish? And if it's a better outcome, how does digital health improve that or make it easier for them or cost less? The other kind of technology that I've been looking at, and it's in and out of trend now, is blockchain and distributed ledger. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are several countries now that are looking at applying it so that even if there's not a hospital or healthcare system nearby, having your own record and being able to pull it so that you have access to it, almost like a personal health record, but decentralized and secure so that nobody else can access it but you, may actually be the best, safest thing for you as an individual, as well as when you see your doctor, who you trust is not going to take your data and misuse it in any way. If we can link that type of system to some of the for-profit activities that are going on now in the States, like participating in clinical trials or grouping people together as virtual networks for some type of health insurance type scheme. I mean, just as an example, imagine having 100 diabetics that work together to manage their glucose and use peer-to-peer networking along with digital analytics to view their glucose, help each other to make sure they're taking their insulin or they're taking their glyburide or their medication, and actually reduce all their hemoglobin A1Cs together. Instead of having 10 doctors, maybe you get it down to one doctor and two nurses. Yeah? Now that group can go to an insurance plan that has a bunch of these diabetics on their books and say, we cost less, we deserve a lower premium. Or better yet, we'll do a decentralized autonomous organization, a DAO, and we'll just insure ourselves. Why are we giving you the money when you're not going to give it to us? We'll set up our own rules as to what we agree to and what we don't as a group. And then as people in the group need help, that money will be distributed accordingly.
Well said. That is a question how this the data is that what you were saying about I want to ask you. My son gave a very beautiful way of. He's a neuroscience graduate from Vanderbilt. He said that very interesting about the doctors and present day doctors. He said, Dad, a person can have all the colors, but he cannot be a great artist, because he has the colors. He's like because you have the data, all the data available. Without a doctor, you cannot create a perfect picture of the health. You need a doctor to create that health picture. So that was the job of the doctor, to create the picture of the perfect health of the picture. That's what he said. It's very interesting. So thank you. It's a truly an honor, George Mathew, Dr. Mathew. You have impeccable credentials. I'm very glad to spoke with you. It is truly an honor.
Ramana, thank you. The honor is mine. Thank you so much for reaching out, and I hope I was helpful in some way.
Thank you so much.
For mental relaxation, early human civilizations in the East practiced Buddha's teachings, while in the West they performed rituals. One place they mastered the consciousness through meditation. and other places altered consciousness through psychedelics. But there is another alternative technique called consciousness hacking through technological innovation. A mathematical equation through virtual reality can offer and alter and master consciousness at the same time. A genius painter from Japan, a legendary scientist from Princeton University, and an engineer from IBM came from a different walks of life, from different times, made important contributions for consciousness hacking. Benoit Mandelbrot was hired by IBM to solve a nagging problem in the early days of telecommunications. The problem is a noise popping up while sending the data across telephone lines. Noise is an undesirable or unwanted signal that gets randomly added to the actual information carrying signal. Mandelbrot noticed a fixed pattern of noise repeating across the telephone lines irrespective of the distance the data traveled. Mandelbrot recollected seeing a similar idea before, a picture of a giant wave on a children's spiral notebook. The picture is the original painting from 18th century well-known Japanese artist Katsushika Hokusai. It is called the Great Wave of Kanagawa. Look at any part of the Great Wave, it looks very similar to the whole wave. The whole contains the parts. It looks counterintuitive, but the part also contains the whole. The artistic expression gave rise to a new concept in mathematics called fractals. Mandelbrot discovered nature's fundamental unit repeated through a geometrical pattern. The same geometrical pattern is present everywhere in the clouds, seashores, trees, and even in the human bodies. The nervous system looks very similar to that of a lightning. The EKG of the heart signal is strikingly similar to that of a noise signal in telephone wires. If you further zoom in into the signal, the strange looking pattern emerges. The pattern is discovered by Mandelbrot, bears his name Mandelbrot set. The nature around you, the snowflakes, trees, mountains are built from these series of Mandelbrot sets. We can also observe Mandelbrot sets at the beginning of life in a woman's womb. The equation that governs the nature is spectacularly simple and displays the nature in exquisite details. Before the public understood the power of the Mandelbrot sets, Hollywood jumped in. The Star Trek movies with the fractals put the movie watchers in a trance. There is a different kind of a trance was described by an American botanist, a former New Age hippie, Terence McKenna. He frequently experimented with a psychedelic brew called ayahuasca. He chronicled his experiences through books and videos. Amazonian Indians consumed this brew on ceremonial occasions. Terence McKenna claims this brew produced visual and auditory hallucinations while his eyes were closed. He claimed his experiences profoundly changed his outlook on life.
Many of them, and they come pounding toward you, and they will stop in front of you and vibrate, but then they do a very disconcerting thing, which is they jump into your body. They jump into your body, and then they jump back out again. And the whole thing is going on in this very high-speed mode, where you're being presented with thousands of details per second, and you can't get a hold on, you say, my God, what's happening?
In recent studies by Johns Hopkins and New York University Langone Special Unit Psychedelic Medicine Center conducted studies with the psychedelic drug psilocybin in a controlled environment. The chemical compound in psilocybin is dimethyltryptamine, in short called DMT. The studies show a single dose of psilocybin dramatically reduced the depression with the subjects of research. Interestingly, the visual hallucinations the subjects describing look very similar to Mandelbrot fractals. In the years before, Albert Einstein published a theory of general relativity, a profoundly mind-bending way of looking at nature. Mass tells space-time how to curve, and space-time tells mass how to move. Gravity is not a force, it is an illusion created by the bodies moving in space-time curvature. Einstein deployed a very different branch of mathematics called non-Euclidean geometry. We don't experience non-Euclidean geometry in our everyday lives. American Airlines pilot explained this phenomena through a tricky example. The shortest route from Dallas to Hong Kong is first Dallas to Seattle, then Seattle to Alaska, then Alaska to Siberia, then Siberia to Mongolia, then Mongolia to Hong Kong. That is the shortest route. But you see on a flat map, it creates an illusion the Hong Kong is directly right across Dallas. But if you combine Einstein's non-Euclidean geometrical concepts with the Mandelbrot fractals, watching in a virtual reality devices, it is truly a technical wonder. It produces mind-feasting, kaleidoscoping patterns where all your visual channels are fully occupied. It puts you in a trance and gives you same bliss without inducing substances. The fractals are nature's artistic expressions. Now you are in tune with the nature. Welcome to 25 milligram DMT experience without a DMT. Consciousness hacking through technology is a mass mental relaxation technique for modern humans. Thank you for watching.
Hey guys, I'm going to do a short presentation after this. Then you see that why the fractal geometry can play a key role in mental health and relaxation. As a strong case for that. So we heard from Dr. George Mathew. He is both the digital and the clinician. Wonderful doctor. Thank you for that. Do not take drugs. Drugs are not the answer. Um, But I want to tell you the story about is appeared on Medium. Yeah, her name is Erin Bishwanger. She was treated as she was diagnosed a stage 4 cancer. So that she is a terminally ill cancer. So it's a sad story. She has two young children, and she is consumed by dying thoughts and worrying about her children. And then the doctors are equipped to treat the sick people. They never really got the good training on the training on how to treat the people who are dying, death itself. They don't know. It is not well trained in that area. Palliative care is good, but it's not well trained in a lot of senses, in a lot of things. Most of the doctors are not trained unless you take that specialty. But she went to an Indian doctor. His name is Dr. Sunil Agarwal. He's in Seattle. She went to get he's a physical medicine rehabilitation doctor. He wanted to prescribe psilocybin, but psilocybin cannot be prescribed because it is Schedule 1 drug. So what they said that is not possible. So it is, as I said, that psilocybin is mushrooms. The street drug name is called mushrooms. It is not allowed. So it is ayahuasca. That's it called. Schedule 1 is defined as Schedule 1 drug, means it is they don't see any usefulness for the medical use. Even though Trump administration passed the Right to Try Act, which is you can use any kind of methods as a last resort, even though they're not approved, you can use on patients. That is a last resort, Right to Try Act. But the federal agencies are not that crazy about it. To some extent, understandably so, because they can easily leak into the a recreational world without any controls. So we have a not only Erin Bushfinger is having a problem with the mental health, even with the terminally ill people. Now we are all having a problems with after the pandemic. Entire humanity is going through mental health crisis. Is a catastrophe is on the making. So you see the violence is one of the things. It is a long COVID is one of them. Supply chain is a disruption. All this can cause street violence, because one of the manifestations of the mental health is street violence and the racial violences. All of them are manifesting into different kind of violence comes into picture. So that we need to treat the mental health just a general. I'm not saying treatment. We need to relax people. This kind of we are coming out of the pandemic. We need to find some solutions. So worldwide mental mess. 1 billion people out of 8 billion people have a one way or other way some kind of a mental disease, mental health problem, anxiety disorders. All of them are episodic disorders, even short term. This is a 1 billion people have it. See that it is very dangerous to in that kind of a number. But the thing is, a lot of people cannot go to the. It is a stigma. There's a lot of stigma attached to the another problem is the access to the. We don't have enough psychologists and counselors, addiction counselors. We don't have enough, and then cost. The insurance companies sometimes cover, sometimes they don't cover. It's very expensive. So it is a lot of problems with the mental health area. So we need to. It's not a practical to. Prescribe psilocybin to everybody, but we have to find a solution. What the solution we have is what I showed you on the TV, is that on the video, that is the create an alternative solution to the mental health. You cannot. It's not a treatment. It is a mental health relaxation. I'm not a doctor. You need to go to the doctor and talk with them. If you have mental health problems, but if you want to do mental health relaxation, you have solutions. You can find a technology can be a great solution there. I'm a great fan of Plato and Buddha. These are all taught us. They gave a very practical tools how to relax yourself through the technology. You can use technology to understand through the wisdom of these the way sages, like Buddha and Plato. So I want to tell you something about there is some correlation between the mental health and the beauty, like surprisingly so. So if you take Marilyn Monroe, Denzel Washington, the right hand side woman is Aishwarya Roy, Indian Bollywood actress. If you strike a line, draw a line in between the eyebrows, their symmetry, the left side looks like almost very close to the right side. That is a bilateral symmetry. They call in mathematics it's called bilateral symmetry. So symmetry is a fundamental loss behind the loss of conservation of energy, law of conservation of momentum. Actually, physical laws are not that fundamental. The laws that you hear, law of conservation, for example, either energy is neither created nor destroyed, is not the fundamental. It came from the loss of symmetry. So there is so that's why we love diamonds. We like to see diamonds. Butterflies have a bilateral symmetry on the both wings. We admire all the symmetry, perfect symmetries we admire. That is a beauty comes from the that we humans we have this affinity towards the symmetry itself. So there is a OCD, obsessive compulsory disorder. They call people, if I had a friend in Philadelphia. I don't want to mention her name, but she is perfect in everything. She puts together everything in the refrigerator, everything order. If you change a little bit, and she goes nuts. so OCD is all this. Until now, the new research, they used to think is a biological disorder or psychological disorder, but they wanted to no, it's a psychological disorder. They used to think now the new research showing that OCD could be evolutionary genetic disorder, because the extreme need for symmetry. That's what we came from savannas, that we want to see familiar faces, because if you see anybody that if you see the anything symmetry, you can easily recognize what is the next. If you see half of that face, you know the next half of the face. If you see the line, you see the next of the line is a line. You know that. So that is you can assess the situation of the danger and threats. So symmetry is also involved with the sex. Sex is connected with the depression. For example, symmetry. So they say they did a research on the orgasms of women, and then they found out a woman have more orgasms with the people with the facial symmetries are much better, with the left side equal to the right side, or the bilateral symmetry of the man. So same thing, particularly for women. That is one of the characteristics found out in the research study. And the people who have asymmetric characteristics, they go through a depression. They show aggression. That's why you see all the villains in the movies are asymmetric faces. They got a one eye left, one eye missing, or something like that. You see that in the movies, right? So that is one of the things is true. They created kind of the aggression behavior you expect from them. Unfortunate. So these laws are discovered by M.E. Noether, a physicist, a mathematician, and a physicist in the 19th century, late 18th century. She was from German mathematician. She moved to Philadelphia, in fact, and then she died in Philadelphia right after moving. Within 2 years of her moving, she died. She was a brilliant mathematician. She was one of the not well known in the world of science, because we are consistently undermining women in the field of their contributions. She is definitely one of the top contributors of medicine and physics. Physics and mathematics that indirectly related to medicine. They're all fundamental to medicine. So but by the way, the laws of nature, the conservation laws, for example, the law of conservation of energy came from the laws of time. For example, the time symmetry. That means if you throw a ball, it is going to come tomorrow or today or yesterday. It will do the same thing. That's a time symmetry. Doesn't matter what day, what time you do. It is going to follow the natural law. That law is called a time symmetry law. That is actually manifestation into the energy symmetry, energy conservation of energy. Same thing with the snowflake, rotational symmetry. If you take a snowflake and move around any other way, it looks exactly the same. So that is rotational symmetry. All the laws of physics comes from the symmetry. They're not fundamental what you people think. It is a cheat sheet for a lot of physicists. We use that as a cheat sheet, law of conservation principles. But the concept behind is laws of symmetry. So nature itself exhibits a lot of symmetry. You see in the flowers, even the honeybees prefer a flower with a beauty, radial symmetry. Actually, it prefers it's not just honey, it is also prefers the beauty, the honeybees. So that that's why there is a lot of these structures are very symmetry, and they contain the fractals, in fact. So you'll see the nature's beauty is like a high definition. The fractals use, if you see on the left hand side, it used to be old TVs. They used to see blurred image. On the right hand side, high definition TV, you can see crystal clear images. That's what the fractals does. Fractals create that kind of simulations, very clear cut pictures. So that's why standard in HD TVs. So fractals, nature embedded the fractals, and then the fractals come out of the symmetry itself. If you combine Hollywood used it, as I mentioned. So the fractals are everywhere in the nature. So let me. Okay, so these fractals are using a lot of these. You can see in the human body, nervous system follows the fractal geometry, and the virus structures are also follows the fractals. In fact, that is a very powerful fractals geometry. It follows the heart coronaries. They have the fractal structures in the heart itself. The structure of the heart is a very embedded. The fractals are embedded in the structure of the heart. So you can see the fractals everywhere in the human body. So 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 there is a bliss molecule inside of us. It is called anandamide. Ananda is a bliss. Is a bliss molecule. They found out recently in 2000. Very recently, 2015 or 2019, I think. They found this they call it bliss molecule. It is inherent to humans. What it is, pregnant women have this bliss molecule. The elevation goes up. There is a neurotransmitter, actually. Anandamide is a neurotransmitter. Is a chemical that it goes up because they feel bliss. They feel bliss, and they feel hungry during the pregnancy because they don't want them to move anywhere. They want to feed the baby. That's why the nature created a subway system to create this anandamide, a bliss molecule inside the body itself. So you don't need to borrow. You don't need to take mushrooms to get the bliss. You can do the bliss. You can invoke that bliss molecules through our inherent structures inside of us. So then it could help. Our new methodology can help the virtual reality. So it's a mindful meditation if you do with the virtual reality without 25 minutes a day, 25 minutes a week. 25 DMT is a milligrams. What you feel when you see 25 milligrams of DMT, if you take it, you feel all these fantastic colors and everything. You can feel the same thing. So actually, the simulations, the fractal geometries with the hyperbolic structures, with Einstein's hyperbolic structures, creating that kind of a bliss, that kind of things that we don't see every day. That is creating a different mechanism is creating in our brains. I talk about it in the one of the next things. But how that create the bliss molecule works in the future, I will do another show on that one. But Mandelbrot is an IBM engineer who created this, who discovered this Mandelbrot sets, and I'm a great fan of him. I was so if you have my show is supported by these T-shirts and then coffee mugs, and you can buy on Amazon. We are on Amazon. dailywearformedicine.com. I'm going to show you a small short clip on it. So if you have that Mandelbrot, you can buy the coffee cups and everything on the Amazon. So on our Amazon or Ramana.com, it's daily wear for STEM. If you go to my website medbricks.com, you can buy these things on Etsy or Amazon. So thank you for sharing. I am going to, I'm going to, thought is a fractal. In the future, we can talk about that how is a thought works as a fractal way. It works, we can thought next time. But I tell you, I want you to help me promote this response. The best way to support this program with this new kind of a program that I started is I combine technology, medicine, and the physics, mathematics, and everything together in one place. That is the tools for true innovations. So thank you, and watch this short clip, and then
we are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.